everyone. Today we are going to talk about Wicked. No, not that one. The book, the original book that the musical is based on. Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, by Gregory Maguire. This book is actually from my personal bookshelf. I had started to read it once before, and I stopped. And I think you'll understand why when we talk about it. Because I picked it up again and managed to get all the way through. Let's read the back. When Dorothy triumphed over the Wicked Witch of the West in L. Frank Baum's classic tale, we heard only her side of the story. But what about her arch nemesis, the mysterious witch? Where did she come from? How did she become so wicked? What is the true nature of evil? Gregory Maguire creates a fantasy world so rich and vivid that we will never look at Oz the same way again. Wicked is about a land where animals talk and strive to be treated like first-class citizens. Munchkinlanders seek comfort of the middle-class stability, and the Tin Man becomes a victim of domestic violence. And then there is the little green-skinned girl named Elphaba, who will grow to become the infamous Wicked Witch of the West. A smart, prickly, and misunderstood creature who challenges all the preconceived notions about the nature of good and evil. Once again, I read the back, and it sounds so promising. But what we get, I feel, is not what we're promised. So with the help of Mr. Notebook, let's talk about Wicked. You know how sometimes I'll read a book that other people really, really love, and I will not be as thrilled by it, and I will tend to feel like I'm just missing something, or I'm too dumb to get it, or something like that. And I really feel that way about Wicked, because I know some very smart people who love this book, and I feel like maybe I'm just too dumb to get what they get from it. But on the other hand, when have I ever let idiocy stop me from speaking my mind? So let's carry on, I guess. This is one of those books that I really feel like I should love, that I am supposed to love. It's like classical music. Like, I can listen to a few songs, classical songs, but then that's enough, and I don't need to listen to classical music again for a long time. And I feel like that is something that I, as an artiste, am supposed to love, and I just don't. And I feel like this book is the same way, like there's something that I must be missing. But let's just talk about what I noticed about it and see what we come up with. First of all, I would like to point out that this book is a fanfiction. It is a published fanfiction. So if any of you are out there still snubbing your noses and lifting your chins high going, well, fanfiction is a lower form of life to regular fiction, remember that this book is a very popular fanfiction. This book seems to mostly be based off of the original Wizard of Oz book, although every now and then it feels like there are some elements from the movie in it. Like, do you remember, I read The Wizard of Oz, and actually not too long ago, was the witch actually green in the book? I didn't think she was. I think the green thing came from the movie, but I could be wrong. Okay, so let's get right into the nitty-gritty of this book. I understand why I stopped reading it, because the first 2/3 of this book are boring and unpleasant to me. Maybe some people like it. It is so hard. I almost gave up again to get through that first, like, 2/3 of the book. I just didn't care. At one point, most of the way through the book, Elphaba is at a monastery, and when she leaves the monastery, then the book starts to pick up and get interesting. Then it wasn't a chore for me to read it. But before that, holy cow, is it a slog? Man. I have a new title for this book. It is called The Politics and Sex of Oz. Because that's basically what the first half is about. Politics and sex. That's one of the reasons I don't like adult books quite as much, is because sex is such a huge focus, and I personally do not want to watch characters have sex. I mean, to know that they have it is fine, but I don't want to be privy to it. I don't need to know what her boobs are doing. I don't care. The world in this book has no wonder to it. And I understand that that is kind of what the author was going for, to take this magical land of Oz and show that it is not magical. It was kind of all in the perception of Dorothy what was magical. And it is just sort of an average land with politics and people and a middle class and an underclass and all that stuff. But to take the magic from Oz really takes the fun out of this book. Again, reading it felt like a chore. The original books were so filled with wonder and beauty and amazing things that to strip that all away and make it very cold and sanitized feeling, I felt it really took away from what this book could have been. Maybe some people really like that, and it seems strange for me because if you watched my cliches that I like video, I actually enjoy stories that take a place like Wonderland or Oz and make it more grown up for me now. But those kind of stories seldom remove the magic. They might dull it, they might make it a little bit more brown and muddy, but they keep that wonder of the world. This book really felt like all the wonder was gone. You have reached adulthood and there is no more magic. It's pretty clear that the author of this book, Gregory Maguire, does not think much of Christianity or maybe even organized religion in general. And you know, it's a sentiment that I've seen a lot. Never gets old, does it? For some reason in this story, we very rarely see things from Elfie's point of view. Elfie is Elphaba. Especially in the beginning of the book where it's such a slog. I think there may be a direct correlation to my enjoyment at the end of the book and the fact that we are finally seeing some of the time, at least from her point of view, because in most of the book, it's people looking at Elfie from their points of view. Now maybe, again, maybe the author is trying to make a point about, you know, the way people see other people, but in the beginning of the book, people actually treat her pretty well. She goes to a school where you are waiting for like the traditional bullying stuff to happen, and actually she kind of makes friends and has an okay time. And I mean, yeah, she's green and not a very nice person to be around, but like there's never that extreme backlash that you're expecting. It is only in the end, when you are in her point of view, that you start to see like how people start to see her as a witch. And it's a little confusing, like, why is the point of view that way? Again, I feel like maybe I'm just like this close to grasping something and like I'm just not getting it because I'm too dumb. But seriously, it takes you away from the character of Elfie and makes you not care about her. And I feel like you should care about the main character of a story. Actually, all the characters in this book are pretty unlikable. Except, Nanny. Nanny is the shit. The character of Elphaba is pretty inconsistent. Because we're hopping around from different people's points of view, and we're hopping around through time, her character, we are to understand, grows and changes, but we really do not get to see any of this growth and change, especially since we're not in her point of view for most of the book. And so it's a tryst all over again. It's like suddenly she's this, and then she's this, and then she's this, and we don't know why. Although I personally think, and this might be true, that Elphaba genuinely has manic depressive disorder. Is it a disorder? I apologize if I'm getting that wrong. But she goes from manic to depressive, and it's a swing, and it will sometimes last for a few days. And I joke about other characters being that way because they're poorly written, but I actually think that Elphaba was intended to be manic depressive. So at least there's that. At least I think it was intentional in this book, even though they never come right out and tell you. However, it makes her a difficult character to relate to because you never know how she's going to be. And it makes her decision-making, especially since you're not in her head, it makes her decision-making extremely tenuous seeming, like you don't understand why she's doing a lot of stuff that she's doing. Most of this book, the writing and the tone of this book felt mean, cold, and unrelatable. Now maybe that again was intentional because I've also sort of described the main character. And honestly, I don't even mind that the main character is mean, cold, and unrelatable, but I don't want to read a book that doesn't feel like there was love put into it. It feels like this book, while I was reading it, actively hated me and didn't want me to read it. It was like that, unpleasant and cold, and it felt like somebody put on rubber gloves and then wrote this book. That is a tone that I am not used to and I do not like. Once the book finally picks up where Dorothy is in the picture and starts to tie in with the original book, it gets a lot more interesting. But once we got to that point, I was actually eager to read it. Now I understand that it's important for books to have lead up, especially fan fictions. So often when you're writing a fanfic, you get excited about the point that you want to be at and you get there super fast. But the lead up in this book was such a slog that it was not worth it. I mean, the ending bit was cool, but it's such a tiny portion of the big-ass book that I would not read it again. I would maybe like skip to that part if I ever read it again, because the beginning part is just so terrible to me. There were a lot of themes and ideas in this book that were touched on and sort of attempted to talk about. Obviously, the nature of evil, what makes someone evil, are they truly evil, or is it just what we've heard about them? And that is really, again, sort of brought up more strongly at the end of the book, again, where the writing in the book feel a lot stronger and more fun to read about. In fact, like most of the really intense, like, true themes of the book really seem to come up more at the end. I think they're there at the beginning, but they're less noticeable. There's also a little bit of a theme about souls that Elphaba has going on, whether she feels that anything has a soul, whether she has a soul, and that's interesting. And of course it's left up to you as the reader to decide, you know, does she or doesn't she, and what does make evil. The evil thing is a little bit more shoved in your face than the soul thing. But all of these themes, while interesting, seem kind of like shoved in there with a little bit of lack of grace. I don't know, lack of grace is the term that I can come up with. Writing a book requires skill and love and the ability to make things flow like a dance. And this dance is like you're doing a ballet and all of a sudden there's a polka. And yeah, maybe it's a really good polka, but you don't fucking know why there's suddenly a polka in the middle of your ballet. Do you follow me? Probably not. Overall, this book felt cold, unloved, calculated, poorly paced, and lacking in any real magic. I was really unimpressed with this book. Maybe all of that was intentional, but it didn't do anything for me as a reader. I prefer a book where you can tell that there was love put into it. And I'll forgive other things if I can tell that. Like the Diviner's book was crafted with love and you can feel it. And so even though there are some problems with that book, I am way more willing to forgive it than this one. This one, like I said, it just felt joyless. And that didn't do anything for me. So if you love this book, feel free to let me know, like, what am I missing? What are some themes that maybe I missed? What is the point of this book that is obviously just whooshed over my head or something? Or are you on the same page as me? Let me know in the comments. And I will see you next time. And hopefully we're going to be talking about Shakespeare pretty soon. I'm gathering some materials for it, and they are rather far-flung. So, but we will get to Shakespeare. Don't worry. It's going to happen. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go find my broomstick and my flying monkeys. I'll be in my tower.
It's time to try defying gravity. I think I'll try defying gravity, and you can't pull me